G'day everyone, welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls. As you can see in the background here, sneak peek of the helm station. God, that's taken some work and it's almost ready for fairing and painting. We've got a lot coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got so much going on at the moment. I've got electrics all happening in there. I've got bulkhead issues. I've got a massive hole I've cut in the back of the boat there and a lot of other things going on for this week. And we had a special appearance from a fellow who has not been around for a while, decided to show up and cast his wisdom down on the project. So about time we get into it. Part of this rear lounger is actually the access within it, and I intend to have quite a bit of storage in there at the bottom of that, so I do need access. I'm going to put 4 of these, 1, 2, 3 and 4, so that I have unbridled access into it. I may even put a bulkhead in and put in a false floor to hide some of the tubes. What are you doing? Finished. You're finished? Clocked out. Clocked off. I've made a template here to cut out the opening, and I'm going to hole saw each of the corners and then grind it out, and then I'll have access all the way along underneath that loungette. Right, these older style boats don't have a lot of hatch space, so I've got to basically fabricate hatches, and what I've done is I've bought these plastic hatches, but I do need full access down into this compartment with which to run my hydraulics, steering, and some wire chasers across the bridge deck. Very, very important. But what I've got to do is cut in. And over here, I'm actually doing another one on the other side here. I will have one here in the centre. The problem is the bulkhead actually intersects across here, so I've got to be very, very careful how I do that. Now, I may have to change the hatch size. Imagine, if you will, a slow leak of water dripping down the back of this lounge suite. Years and years of rain, salt spray, condensation, build-up, dripping down here underneath this hatch that the sealant may or may not have survived, and then dripping in and getting in between the glass laminate and the core of this boat. Now, if that was balsa wood or plywood, then we'd have a massive issue, but because it's foam, and if you had a balsa wood boat, I'd be encouraging you to do the same thing. The actual core itself, very importantly, needs to be cored out with a router or scalloped out and then filled with something like Cavasil and vinyl ester would be ideal. I tend to use polyester on some of these surfaces just because it's a bit cheaper, but to actually route out all of these cores is a hugely time-consuming task, and physically routing it out is also messy, it's noisy, but what I can guarantee is by putting in the filler into these cores in around about a centimetre or so into the actual laminate, I can prevent any moisture absorption, and not so much with foam as the absorption I'm worried about, it's more delamination. So these are some of the things that a boat builder like myself and others that are building their own boats will really concentrate on. But I've got the time to do this right. The last thing I want to do is have to cut out a part of this later on and re-laminate it all while I'm cruising somewhere nice. So, or to pay somebody to come and do it if I can't physically do it myself. So doing the core, what I've done basically, I've just spent the last half hour or so sanding these edges nice and neat. And the bit that I actually use, I'll just show you that part. It's actually a T-piece bit, and it will go in around about 15 millimeters into the core and physically remove that foam very effectively. But the beauty of it is I'm going to have solid chord openings wherever I put a hatch on this boat, and that's so important. Luckily, where my physical opening hatches are for the cabins, it's solid glass, so I don't need to worry about that. But even if you had a fully cored boat, you must remove that foam core from any exposed edge or any edge that's going to cop a knock, because once it actually starts to penetrate, that moisture will get in under the laminate and ultimately delaminate your boat. I've got a bit of a problem down in there. I can't get to the last 4 or 5 feet of the back seam, and it's a bit of an issue down in there, but someone's just come up with an awesome suggestion. What's your story?
When's my boat going to get finished?
Tell them the solution you just came up. I've been standing here all day racking my brains. You just came up with a great idea.
You know, like common sense would tell you to drill some holes in the back of the bulkhead.
Yeah, like a big hatch, yeah.
So they can get in there and fiberglass the 2 bits together.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I reckon I could do that. I reckon a 20 centimetre hatch. I'll buy a couple of hatches. That's what I'll do. I'll buy a couple of 20 centimetre hatches.
What are the hatches going to use for?
So I can access the back.
Well, you like you said, you're putting your
the davits.
Your rubber boat on the back, isn't it?
Yeah, the inflatable. No, it's going to be a foam core tender.
Inflatable, you're going to call us Cindy?
Only you can say that, mate. That is hilarious.
Come on.
John's checking out my integration here. I think I'm pretty happy with that. That actually
took
a bit of work to get that all fared down, and I put the glass on yesterday in 4 layers of glass, and then it's.
Have you hinged your hatch?
No, not yet. No. Haven't done that yet. He's the quality control inspector's here. By popular demand, everyone's been screaming out for John to come back. In fact, what happened? What happened to you?
Oh, they checked me out on the street. I was having some Chinese, and they said, "Your life on the holes."
That's hilarious.
No, come on, that's not me.
I'm getting shown up by you, mate.
I only told him how to build it. I don't build it. I only tell him how to do it.
You are absolutely brilliant. What a bastard. He's taken my channel. So following his visit, His Majesty Johnny, I have started the process of cutting a hatch in that large bulkhead. Now, the important thing about that, and I didn't realise it until I'd actually started to cut it, is that I'm going to need access in there anyway, because the reality is there's always going to be moisture that I'm going to need to be drying out. Nice to be able to open up just about every cavity and get the moisture out of it. That would have been a sealed area that would have always carried some moisture. So I've cut the same template. I'm going to use exactly the same hatches I'm using on the top of the lounge here to complete that section in there. It's going to make a massive difference, and I'm going to be able to physically tab and glue the inside of that rear bulkhead. That's the one part of the whole deck and hull that I haven't joined, is this stern section, and I've been sort of trying to work out how I was going to do it. Luckily, John came over, threw his wisdom at me, and I really like this idea, because now I've actually got an extra storage compartment in behind there that I didn't otherwise have, and that'll be a good area there to be able to monitor moisture in the back of the boat and the like. But yeah, pretty happy with that. I'm not sure the hatch is going to fit, because it was a pretty tough place to cut out with a grinder in there, but I'll certainly be able to do the other side exactly the same, and then I've got plenty of access. It's been a bit of work getting this guy all integrated in. As you can see, I've got the solid core of the foam of the actual top of the deck here on the sugar scoop, and I've actually rounded it off and shaped it. I've had a bit of an issue right here on both sides. It's where the hull actually integrates in, and this is actually the old hull, is way back here. So I've been able to sort of fair it and get it reasonably level, so that when I put the glass on it, I'll then be able to reshape it again. So I put 2 or 3 layers on just here, and then I'll be able to sand back and get that smooth and fair. Now, last week I received a comment about how I stay focused on any given job when there's literally thousands of things I could do, and this is exactly one of those cases where I was just walking past the side combing of the sugar scoop, and I thought, oh, I might actually have a look at where my fuel filler valves or inlets will go. And I remember seeing a photo of the last boat that was made out of this mould, and it had a couple of fuel fillers on each side with a fuel transfer line clearly to each side into each hole, and that was actually recessed into the deck. And I thought, oh, I might have a go at that. Now, it is a common problem. I tend to flip from one thing to the other, but I always have the opinion that I'm better off doing something rather than doing nothing. There's not a minute goes by that I'm not sitting and thinking I should be doing something. So I do try to keep pretty focused, and this is one of those jobs I got into. So I've got to fill in this gap here and integrate it in, and I'm just going to use some foam and cut it in, glue it in, and then laminate the whole thing as one piece, shape it, and I'm just trying to work out how to do that. So I've got a piece of 20mm H80 here, unlaminated, and I'll hopefully be able to laminate from underneath, which I should be able to. I'm just going to trim the existing section here. Okay, so I've actually cored this out, which means that I can fill it with this, and then I'll be able to shape it to whatever shape I like, which will be just a nice little fine radius. So very important, all foam needs to be cored if it's going to have an edge to it, and that's just vital. And it's been the key to this whole build here, this back section, is coring the foam, make sure all my wear points are solid. It's interesting, the sort of things that keep me up at night. I got home last night and I've done like 3.5 hours work on the fuel tank rebates, the filler rebates on the boat. I thought they're going to look really, really nice. And then I'm laying in bed at about midnight last night thinking, the water's going to pool in them. You need to consider this, and having built kayaks all my life, I've always been concerned about water sitting on a deck. And it's just one of those things. I've come in today to rectify that situation. Because I made it like a hook shape, the water was going to pool in the bottom of that around my fuel tank filler valves, and that's really not going to be a good solution. I don't want any water around there. I want it to run away. So I've come in this morning. I'm going to have to rectify that. It's simply a matter of cutting a secondary curve to allow for water to make its way away from the insert and away from the boat. But yeah, those are the sorts of things that I have to think about at night. How did I get away with not picking that up? You know, sometimes you just got to think things through 10 times and you still won't get it right. But anyway, I'm going to fix it now. So what I'm talking about is this part here. The water's actually going to pool in here, and we'll end up with, you know, only a couple of teaspoons, but it's enough to really be one of those annoying things on a boat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rebait it away here, so any water will just sort of naturally flow away, and I might end up with a couple of drips, but not certainly pooling. And you don't want it pooling around your filler valves either. So there has been some considerable prep go on to the joining of the stern of this boat. Now, right on this very stern here, as you can see, I've got a couple of wedges wedged in between the top and the bottom, and I need to basically seam it. Now, access is near on impossible, so I've cut access hatches in the rear stern lounge, and then I've also cut access hatches into the bulkhead, and they're going to be sealed off, drop down sealable hatches. But I did have to do that because I've got no chance of tabbing the inside. Now, my method in the whole boat is to tab inside and out, or at least inside as well as gluing. So basically by doing both, I'm sort of covering my bases. But as you can see, there's a gap all the way along there with some blue masking tape behind it. I've taped wherever I can reach, and I'm going to pump epoxy in there, and then I'm going to clamp it shut and leave it for a few days before coming back and then removing the bolts, and then I'll be able to tab the inside. So where that blue masking tape is right there, I'll be able to get in behind it. Sorry about the wind, guys, it is howling here today. So I'll just have a quick look here. As you can see along there, you can see a blue line. That's masking tape backing it, so it'll stop the glue from dropping down inside the boat. I don't want any mess in there because I can't get in there to clean it out, and then I'll be able to get in there and hopefully tab the majority of it. There is a bit of a gap there, so I've got to go and fill that now. So you can see here I've got my hatches cut in the lounge, and then I have my second hatch down in here, which allows me access up into there. And that's going to be one of the worst tabbing jobs I've ever done, because that line where the blue masking tape is has to all be tabbed, and I've got very limited access. I can reach right to the centre, so I should be able to do it. It's going to be a stinker of a job, but I've just been in there and vacuumed it all out because it was so full of fiberglass from all the grinding I've been doing. And basically it's complete all the way along here. Almost fell off a bloody ladder then.
Scrutiny would reveal in relation to a particular organisation.
Alright, I've just joined the back stern of the back of the deck, and pretty happy to have that done. I'll leave that for a few days. I'll just come up to check on the progress. Looks pretty productive here. We've got hatches and internal lids and internal linings, and somebody's been busy, haven't you? Look at you, you're like a little production line here. This is a sweatshop. It's actually not even hot, which is really nice, but we'll get all this done before it becomes a sweatshop. It'll only be a couple of weeks away. So Janet's currently doing another deck hatch. We've got about 4 to go. Another internal hatch lining and the 2 forward hatches. We're going to do a duplicate of those in case we need to make a mould later on, in case we ever lose or damage them. So we'll knock out a couple of those. Probably been a bit paranoid, but I think it's well worth it. You're doing a great job, Jan.
Yeah, it's not going too bad. A bit slow today.
Bit slow today, eh?
Yeah, it's just
late night.
Happening. It's just not happening.
It's all right, let's get it done, eh? So I've currently been going 7 days a week. It's been pretty taxing, I've got to be honest. It's starting to play havoc on my knees again, and I've got a bit of a medial ligament problem. It's like a tendonitis, and because I spend a lot of time on my knees tabbing and the like, so probably going to have a morning off tomorrow just to try to get my head around what I've got coming up, because I've got a lot coming up, and I've given the apprentice a day off. She's been working so hard and doing 3 days a week at Marine Rescue, trying to get all of her qualifications up. And then the other 4 days a week she's been in here making hatches, and normally I let Janet come in and demold them, because it's you know, the part of the pleasure of actually fabricating something like this stuff is the demold. It's the most important thing. But I said to her this morning, I'm going to pop them out of the mold so I can get them ready to go again. Sometimes there's just no waiting for the pride that comes from your workmanship. Now normally one would green trim the excess off a part like this if you were trying to produce a finished part, but we're not. We're trying to keep the molds running hot so that we can get all of the parts made, so that we can ultimately get rid of the molds. But the important one is here is these hatches actually have quite a considerable flange on, and that totally gets cut off, but I need to leave it on, all of them, so that we can thicken them up. We need to add foam to these to make them strong enough if someone were to walk on these hatches. Very important. And the second thing is we need to beef up the edges of them to around about 5 or 6 millimeters so they can withstand all the abuse of shutting, closing, people walking on them and the like. So lots more work to be done on these hatches as we go forward. Oh, that one's spot on. Now, the thing is that this plasticine on this repair here is obviously a bit of a problem, but it all just wipes off and we've got a good hatch. So pretty happy with that one. That's great. Perfect. Awesome. Outstanding, Janet. You have absolutely mastered your craft here. Very happy. Beautiful. Look at that. She's done a great job. I'll tell you what, I wish I taught Janet to lab it 8 years ago. She could have helped me with the bloody boat. Well, she did actually help me with the boat, but she would have enjoyed it a lot more having known what she knows now. These are absolutely spot on. They're not difficult to make, but they do take a lot of detail and a lot of persistence and a lot of brushwork to get something like this right. But yeah, pretty happy. I mean, they're pretty simple. We could possibly vacuum infuse these, but we're trying to knock these out in a hurry. And to be honest, I want them to be a bit heavy because they're going to be quite robust. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing.